All right, I'm going to read from the Private Oral Exam Guide. I'm on Chapter 5, Cross Country Flight Planning, number 29. What operational procedures should be followed when wake vortices are suspected to exist? This is page 5-68. This is Section H, Aeronautical Information Manual, page 5-68, number 29. What operational procedures should be followed when wake vortices are suspected to exist? A. Landing behind a larger aircraft on the same runway. Stay at or above the larger aircraft's final approach flight path. Note its touchdown point and land beyond it. Landing behind a larger aircraft. When parallel runway is closer than 2,500 feet. Consider possible drift to your runway. Stay at or above the larger aircraft's final approach flight path and note its touchdown point. Landing behind a larger aircraft crossing runway. Cross above the larger aircraft's flight path. Landing behind a departing larger aircraft on the same runway. Note the larger aircraft's rotation point and land well prior to rotation point. Landing behind a departing larger aircraft crossing runway. Note the larger aircraft's rotation point. If past the intersection, continue the approach and land prior to the intersection. If larger aircraft rotates prior to the intersection, avoid flight below the larger aircraft's flight path. Abandon the approach unless a landing is ensured well before reaching the intersections. Departing behind a large aircraft. Note the larger aircraft's rotation point and rotate prior to the larger aircraft's rotation point. Continue climbing above the larger aircraft's climb path until turning clear of the larger aircraft's wake. Avoid subsequent heading that will cross below and behind a larger aircraft. G. Intersection takeoff, same runway. Be alert to adjacent larger aircraft operation, especially on your runway. If intersection takeoff clearance is received, avoid subsequent heading which will cross below a larger aircraft's flight path. Departing or landing after a larger aircraft executing a low approach, missed approach, or touch and go landing. Vortices settle and move laterally near the ground. Because of this, the vortex hazard may exist along the runway and in your flight path after a larger aircraft has executed a low approach, missed approach, or a touch and go landing, particularly in light quartering wind condition. You should ensure that an interval of at least 2 minutes has elapsed before your takeoff or landing. En route VFR, 1,000 foot altitude plus 500 feet. Avoid flight below and behind a large aircraft's flight path. If a larger aircraft is observed above or on the same track, meeting or overtaking, adjust your position laterally, preferably upwind. Remember, acceptance of instructions from ATC is an acknowledgement that the pilot will ensure safe takeoff and landing intervals and accept the responsibility for providing wake turbulence separation. Number 30. What are several examples of illusions that may lead to landing areas? Runway with illusion. A narrower than usual runway can create the illusion that the aircraft is at a higher altitude than it actually is. The pilot who does not recognize this illusion will fly a lower approach with the risk of striking objects along the approach path or landing short. A wider than usual runway can have the opposite effect with the risk of leveling out high and landing hard or overshooting the runway. Runway and terrain slope illusion. An upsloping runway, upsloping terrain, or both can create the illusion that the aircraft is at higher altitude than it actually is. The pilot who does not recognize this illusion will fly a lower approach. A downsloping runway, downsloping approach terrain, or both can have the opposite effect. Featureless terrain illusion. In absence of ground features, as when landing over water, darkened areas, and terrain made featureless by snow, can create the illusion that the aircraft is at higher altitude than it actually is. The pilot who does not recognize this illusion will fly a lower approach. Atmospheric illusions. Rain on the windscreen can create the illusion of greater height, and atmospheric haze can create the illusion of being at a greater distance from the runway. The pilot who does not recognize these illusions will fly a lower approach. 31. The acronym LAHSO refers to what specific air traffic control procedure? LASSO. is an acronym for Land and Hold Short Operations. At controlled airports, ATC may clear a pilot to land and hold short of an intersecting runway, an intersecting taxiway, or some other designated point on a runway. Pilots may accept such a clearance provided that the pilot in command determines the aircraft can safely land and stop within the available landing distance. Available landing distance, ALD. Student pilots or pilots not familiar with land and hold short should not participate in the program. Pilots are expected to determine a land and hold short clearance if they determine it will compromise safety or if weather is below basic VFR conditions. A minimum ceiling of 1,000 feet and 3 statute miles visibility. Where can available landing distance ALD data can be found? ALD data are published in the Special Notices section of the AFD and in the U.S. Terminal Procedures publication. Controllers will also provide ALD data upon request. Discuss recommended collision avoidance procedures and considerations in the following situations. Before takeoff, prior to taxi onto a runway or landing area in preparation for takeoff, pilots should scan the approach area for possible landing traffic, executing appropriate maneuvers to provide a clear view of the approach areas. Climbs and descents. During climbs and descents in flight conditions that permit visual detection of other traffic, pilots should execute gentle banks left and right at a frequency that allows continuous visual scanning of the airspace. Straight and level. During sustained periods of straight and level flight, a pilot should execute appropriate clearing procedures at periodic intervals. Traffic patterns. Entries into traffic patterns while descending should be avoided. Traffic at VOR sites. Due to converging traffic, sustained vigilance should be maintained in the vicinity of VORs and intersections. F. Training operations. Vigilance should be maintained and clearing turns should be made prior to practice maneuver. During instruction, the pilot should be asked to verbalize the clearing procedures. Call out clear left, right, above, and below. High wing and low wing aircraft have their respective blind spots. High wing aircraft should momentarily raise the wing in the direction of the intended turn and look for traffic prior to commencing the turn. Low wing aircraft should momentarily lower the wing. Alright, so we'll hold off there. Chapter 5, Cross Country Flight Planning. Section H, that was number 33. This is on page 5-71. See ya.